One of the wonders of technology is the ability for me to respond to my audience in near real time. As some of you out there can attest, sometimes I respond to your emails during the show. And I want you to know how grateful I am for the feedback, even the criticism. But more than the well wishes and critiques, I'm grateful for your insights. I'm elated that some of our discussions have prompted thought, debate, and solutions. Now see, at MSNBS, NBC, CBS, ABC, among other left-wing biased news outlets, you don't get any of that. They have conditioned their audiences to be mindless automatons. Those liberal commentators masquerading as news people are too busy telling their audience what to think rather than listening to their audience's thoughts. Now that's a consequence of the kind of people who make up the bulk of our nation's newsrooms. Most are Democrats. You see, Democrats believe in ruling, not governing. They institute policies against the will of the majority, and their voters support this to impose their narrow worldview and facilitate the left's acquisition of unchallenged power. Absurdly, some folks who call themselves Americans are still watching and voting in that camp. Focusing on feedback, that's our mission in today's preamble. Now here on the Chris Salcedo Show, we're different. We debate, we argue, sometimes we agree. One of the Salcedo Show viewers who told me he was a fan took a friendly jab at me. Eric said, quote, "Thank you. I won a $20 bet with a friend as to whether you would show that graphic of the 18 Republican senators every day for 2 weeks in a row. Your fixation won me $20. Thank you." Little smile and a wink there. Now, in case you are wondering, here's the graphic he's referencing. It shows the GOP senators who stabbed every one of their voters and their GOP House colleagues in the back by unnecessarily voting for the fake budget, the $1.7 trillion omnibus. Now, let me start off by saying that I agree with the emailer. His characterization of me being fixated on these men and women who joined leftists by fully funding the Democrats' cancerous and lawless agenda against the United States, it was accurate. And I think I know where he was coming from. See, I've been relentless in making sure this audience knew of the Senate GOP leadership's betrayal. In the past, I would have let it go. I would have rolled my eyes and said, well, I still think the Republicans support other conservative ideals that I support, so I'll just move on. Not this time. After this omnibus vote, it hit me. The level of harm done to my country, my countrymen, and our standing in the world is a direct result of, frankly, people like me not calling out evil when I see it, regardless of party. Now, how many of you out there have held your nose to vote for a Republican who supported socialist and communist values in the Democrat Party? After this fake budget vote, I'm going to be honest, something changed in me. Ronald Reagan, when explaining why he switched from the Democrat to the Republican Party, he noted how he was going out there and he was campaigning for politicians, decrying useless boards, commissions, and bloated, unaccountable government. And when those politicians he was rooting for got into office, they would continue those wasteful and un-American policies. So too is it with the Senate 18 and the House 9, who voted to fully fund all of the Democrats' corruption we're seeing unfold before our very eyes. From the open borders, to the crime-ridden streets, to the weakening of our U.S. military, to the unequal treatment foisted upon America by the DOJ, FBI, and IRS, among other agencies. The Senate 18 funded all of that abuse of us. By the way, I think Americans can safely get rid of all of these letters in the alphabet. You know, forget DOJ, FBI, HHS, DHS, IRS, DOE. They can all be described under Democrat control with these three letters, KGB. Just like the Durham report confirmed the corruption of Democrats and the DOJ and FBI, Mitch McConnell and the evil 18's omnibus vote confirmed for me what I long suspected and opened my eyes. The two-party system is a mirage. It's an illusion designed to keep the masses focused on minutia while the elites in this country suck the very marrow out of our country. Thanks to Mitch McConnell and John Cornyn, I no longer believe in the fake two-party system, and I don't think you should either. America first, the Constitution, limited government, conservatism. That's my focus. And I wish to applaud conservatives like Senator Ted Cruz, Jim Jordan, and yes, Speaker McCarthy, unexpectedly so, but Speaker McCarthy, for leading the few boll weevils against our increasingly totalitarian and unaccountable government as being voices for the majority of America. The next email that inspired this preamble was from Kikoa, who writes, "Love your show and your patriotism. Question: what can your everyday patriot do other than voting to get the corrupt politicians out of office? More importantly, how can they be held accountable for the crimes they committed against the American people? We, the people, are supposed to be in charge. What do we do?" End quote. Now, of all the email I get, this theme is the most common. The simple answer is, do you see what the left-wingers are doing? Do that. There's a caveat to that, which I will detail in a minute. But generally speaking, when Democrat politicians don't vote 100% in lockstep with their left-wing kook fringe base, that base organizes huge voting blocks, social media campaigns, and protests to either intimidate their politicians or to get rid of those politicians. Now, I support the left-wing's legal and free speech method of doing this. When politicians and the government fear the people, you have something we call liberty. Sadly, the left seeks to imbue a centralized government to ignore the will of the people, install a two-tier justice system, and rule through threats, coercion, and intimidation, as the DOJ and FBI is now shown to do. When that happens, you have tyranny. And that's where the caveat comes in. See, in the old America, before our politicians handed over our rights to unelected thugs in permanent Washington, our people were able to take to the streets to have their voices heard. Now that our law enforcement agencies have been turned into intelligence agencies with the expressed mission to quash free speech, thought, and worldviews that run counter to Democrats' absolute power, well, conservatives are not as safe as we once were to protest. The headlines tell the tale, my friends. After years of rioting, looting, burning, beating, and in some cases, killing their way through our streets, leftists in the Marxist BLM movement and the fascist Antifa groups have had the bulk of their charges dropped. Even in conservative Texas, in the city of Fort Worth, those who broke the law had their charges dropped. Now, when asked why the leftists were allowed to break the law with no consequences, the Fort Worth PD and the city government there gave no rational response, in my opinion. In fact, at the time, refusing to come onto my radio show to explain their actions. I suspect because there was really no lawful explanation. With the help of left-wing billionaires like George Soros, many Democrat DAs have taken office only to release criminals onto their unsuspecting jurisdictions. It's so bad that the left is firebombing pro-life pregnancy centers, and the failed Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland is ignoring that violence instead of opting to prosecute and trying to bankrupt the wrongdoers. They're trying to bankrupt Catholic families whose only offense is objecting to the slaughter of children in the womb. So with the corruption of the KGB alphabet agencies, constitutionalists have to do our work quietly, but methodically. But the work is crucial, and it must be done. The survival of the republic is at stake. Conservatives, classical liberals, and independents, they must join together, as they are in Texas, to combat the Republican-Democrat cabal, a cabal that is backing this statement from Joe Biden.
Rebecca put a teacher's creed into words when she said, "There's no such thing as someone else's child. No such thing as someone else's child. Our nation's children are all our children."
As tough as it might be to imagine, Texas is still among the knuckle-dragging states that deny parental school freedom. Education freedom, by the way, is when education tax dollars flow to the child, not to the failed government institution of GovEd. Polling shows the vast majority of Texas parents support school choice. Even over 50% of Democrats support it. Yet that doesn't stop the uniparty from banding together to thwart the will of the people, to line their own pockets with all that money from the cottage industry that has grown up around GovEd, an industry that prioritizes adult jobs over our children's education. 23, air quotes, Republicans joined nearly all of the socialists in Texas to try and kill school choice in that state. Thankfully, for parents, teachers, and kids, Governor Greg Abbott is standing firm, pledging to right this terrible wrong and put parents back in charge of their kids' education. The grassroots are leading the charge on school choice. It's the civil rights issue of the 21st century. That's how we hold these people accountable. That's how we restore a government of, by, and for the people, by defeating the collectivists of both political parties. And that leads me to Loudoun County, Virginia. As you know, Gov Ed there protected a transvestite rapist, allowing him to rape multiple girls, sacrificing those little girls' innocence on the altar of Democrat loyalty to the non-scientific transvestite agenda. It bears pointing out that those little girls were sacrificed by Gov Ed much in the same way the Senate 18 sacrificed their constituents. A post on the social media page of the conservative ladies of Loudoun County and beyond was brought to my attention. Quote, has Chris Salcedo, Newsmax, taken over Tucker Carlson crusade against the lying establishment? He's on fire and outspoken. Well, ladies, thank you for the kind words and the generous comparison there, but I think that I, Tucker, and a growing number of others like Tulsi Gabbard, Glenn Greenwald, my old boss Glenn Beck, we have recognized the clear and present danger that threaten our more perfect union, and we're speaking out while we still can. I'm confident this soul-searching isn't happening in most of the Democrat Party and among the Surrender Caucus Republicans. But I think you should be thinking about these things, and it appears you are by the emails I'm getting. Every American who wishes to preserve this last best hope of mankind on earth should do everything that you possibly can to beat back the totalitarian forces that threaten the United States. In the past and today, our foes were called the Soviet Union, Hitler's Germany, Imperial Japan, Vietnam, North Korea, Iran, and Communist China. And we still face those foes today. But what's different in 2023 is we're also fighting those same ideological foes within our own borders. Time to wake up, America.